Hey everyone. So this is going to be the second part of my March wrap-up. And there's another video that I want to do as well that I don't know. I feel like I might end up recording it anyway because it's just something I really want to talk about. But real quick, in the last week or so, I have basically swan dived back into my complete obsession with musical theater from high school. How do I say this? Basically, when I saw the film version of Phantom of the Opera when I was 14, that introduced me to not only my deep abiding love for Phantom, which will probably never go away. It will probably always be with me. But also my deep love of musical theater that in high school was to an obsessive point, specifically the Phantom part. But since then, I have loved it, but I haven't always been in that kind of obsessive, addictive mood for it. And about a week ago, I saw the Jesus Christ Superstar live performance, and that, like, jump-started or kick-started, or however you want to say it, my, like, obsessed mood that I've been in the last week of musical theater. And I do want to spend a whole video talking about that because I feel like I need to. But I wanted to kind of run it past you guys first because that way you guys know that that's a video that's coming up. And if you are only around my channel for the books, which I totally understand if you are, then you don't really need to watch it. But it's something that I feel the need to talk about because no one around me is really that into musical theater the way that I am. Neither my mom nor my aunt are. My brother most certainly isn't. I have a few friends who really, really like musical theater, so I'm able to talk to them about it, but, you know, sometimes I just need to go on a little rant about it, and I can't really do that with anyone at the moment, so I just figured I would make a video about that. I'm not going to do that right now because, as I said, I do want to finish the second part of my March wrap-up, especially because I've already recorded the first part, so that way I upload the two videos together, and they're like two halves of a whole, instead of uploading half of that, then a musical theater video, then a second part of a wrap-up. But yeah, I just wanted to run that past you guys and let you know that I was doing that, and, you know, let me know if you think that's a good idea. I'm probably going to record it either way, so if you don't, I'm really sorry. I mean, if you don't think it's a good idea, I'm sorry, just skip it, but it's something I felt the need to talk about. Anyway, okay, so this video is going to be the rest of the books that I read in March, and in the first part, I talked about 4 things, 3 plays, and 1 children's middle grade, young adult book. And I mentioned that I was really happy with everything that I read this month, and I am very happy with everything that I read this month because I really enjoyed all of it. I don't think there was a single thing where I was like, this was awful, I wish I didn't read this. But it was just slightly disappointing because I was only able to get 2 physical books off of my TBR. And one of those I had been reading for 4 years, because 3 of the plays that I read were in a 5-play bind-up that was by Oscar Wilde that I read. I started it in 2014, and I read the first 2 plays in that back then, and then kind of continued to either reread or read for the first time the rest of these until now. So, you know, that was kind of disappointing that it was only 2 physical books off my TBR, but I did also get an ebook off of my Kindle TBR that had been sitting there for a few years. So that was also pretty good. Okay, so anyway, the rest of the books that I read were all pretty much all romance related, I want to say. I reread 6 books in a specific romance series that I read in college, that I read several times in college because I actually owned the books. And then I think I've mentioned to you guys before that, or at least in the last couple of videos, since I got back into a romance mood, that I was very sad because one day, like a couple years ago, I was just in a strict, I am never going to read these books again kind of mood with my romance books. So I gave them all away to the used bookstore. And for some of them, I didn't really care. For a handful of them, like between 5 and 10, I didn't care at the time, but I very deeply care now because they were books that I loved enough to reread and reread over and over again. So, yeah, anyway, the 8 books in this series, of which I reread 6 this month, were 8 of those books. But anyway, this series is the Highlander series by Karen Marie Moning. Rereading these now, I realize that there are other romance writers whose writing I think is a lot better and I like a lot better, but I do really love her setting and her characters and the plot twists, most of the time the plot twists. So I still thoroughly loved these. I've just learned that there are a couple other romance writers that I probably like better. But her Highlander series is I would call it historical, fantastical romance, or historical romance with fantasy elements. It is predominantly set in either America or Scotland, and it's mostly set in, I want to say predominantly it's set in the 15th through the 17th centuries, and then the 21st century, because there's a lot of time travel involved. So I'll talk about these in, not in the order that I read them, but in the order that they are in the series / the order that I like them. And the first 2, I think have always been my least favorite of my favorites, and I'll explain that in a minute. But they are Beyond the Highland Mist and To Tame a Highland Warrior. These are the 2 that are set in the 16th century, I think, and these 2 are connected because one, there are 2 best friends, and the first one is about the first best friend and his kind of romance story, and then the second one is about the other best friend and his romance story. And the thing about these is that I like for both of these, I really enjoyed the main couples, and I really like the setting and the druid magic, and the fact that there are fae involved, and there's actually a specific fae group involved, but I am not going to try to pronounce their name because I'm going to mispronounce it, so I'm not going to do that. But the reason why these 2 are my least favorite are because, least favorite of the favorites, because I have 2 others that one other that I just didn't read because I really just don't like it very much, and it's the only one in the series that I don't like very much, but anyway, I'm rambling at this point. What I don't like about these 2 is there are actions by both sets of main characters, specifically in Beyond the Highland Mist, that to me do not match with their personalities as their personalities have been presented to us, and do not match with the rest of the plot. they make the plot go in a direction that I just think is entirely forced, very weird, wouldn't actually make logical sense, even with magic thrown in there. So it really, I don't know, it kind of irritated me, but then it was great to reread others in the series because I realized that as she went on with the series, that aspect of things got better, so it's like that part of her writing got better. So yeah, those two I would probably give like a 3, between a 3 and a 3.5. And then the next two that I read were, and I didn't actually read these back to back, but I'll talk about them together because they go together, and that is Kiss of the Highlander and Dark Highlander. These two go together because they are about a set of twins. The first one is about one of the twins and his romantic love story, and then the other one is about the other twin and his romantic love story. And they are both druids from the either 16th or 17th. Ooh, wait, actually, maybe early 19th. Oh gosh, I can't remember. They're from some time in the past in Scotland. And they have druid magic, and they both end up, for various reasons, in the 21st century, and that's how they meet both of their significant others. And I really I loved these because, again, as I said, the plot points are better in this than they are in the previous two. She kind of fixed that, where characters don't do weird things that you don't think match with their personalities. And yeah, so basically everything the characters do made sense. I loved the setting. I loved all of the main characters. I loved both of the twins. I loved both of their romantic interests. I thought both women were very strong seeming, which was great. So I really loved those. Those I would give a 4 stars each, or each of 4 stars. And then the last two that I read are actually my, but actually one of them is, I read kind of in between those two. But the last two I'm going to talk about are my 2 favorites in the series, which are Spell of the Highlander, which is book 6, and Immortal Highlander, which is book 7. And then book 5 I actually skipped. That was Highlander's Touch, which is just not one of my favorites, so I just skipped it. And Spell of the Highlander and Immortal Highlander I love because I think because the 2 main heroes are my 2 favorite characters of this whole series. At least my 2 favorite male characters, and I also really like both of their significant others, but specifically Gabby from Immortal Highlander. To me, I like her as much as Gwen and Chloe from Kiss of the Highlander and Dark Highlander. Like, these are my 3 favorite female characters in the whole series, I think. And I really love the plot, too, of both of these, but specifically Spell of the Highlander. The plot is so cool, because it's about this, I want to say, he's either I think he's a 9th century druid who's been trapped for 11 centuries in a mirror. He got trapped by another druid. So the mirror ended up in the 21st century with this 9th century druid trapped in it, and the whole thing is how to break the spell to let him be free of the mirror and you know, be able to join the real world again. And I just really, really liked that whole plot. I found it very intriguing and cool. So yes, these 2, the last 2, Spell of the Highlander and Immortal Highlander, were my 2 favorites of that. And then Into the Dreaming, I also remember really liking. That's book 8, but I just haven't reread it yet, so that might be on the list for this month. I'm not totally sure. And I'm actually going to do a part 3 of my March wrap-up, because I do want to talk about the last 2 books that I read, but I don't feel like I have enough time to do that in a couple of seconds, because I'm already at the 15-minute mark. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of basically this one book series that I've talked about. And let me know what you guys read in March, and thank you so much for watching again, and I will talk to you guys in part 3.